Welcome to the EchoCast, a gaming podcast brought to you by me, Bon Diesel. This is episode 165, Delays on Delays. Please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast on whatever platform you are listening to it on or watching it on. If you are on Spotify or iTunes, please leave a review. I would love if you'd give me a great one, as it would help the podcast get noticed and give me some good feedback. Thank you to this month's Patreon supporters: PK, Uber Timmy, Hassan, Darren, Christian, Man-Made Golf, Grano, and The Dawn. If you would like to support this podcast and my other content, check out patreon.com/BonDiesel. I am still raising money for Extra Life. We are $250 away from the 2021 goal, and I am doing a Logitech PC bundle giveaway of a mouse, keyboard, and headset. Information for both of those are in the description, comments, or on my Twitter at BonDiesel. Jumping into the news. So, since a lot of people who probably still listen to this are Division fans, here's your Division news to start this one off. The Division 2 content has been delayed. Earlier this week, we got an announcement from the team saying that the new mode, the seasons, basically everything but the winter event is being delayed until sometime in 2022. We already knew the apparel event was supposed to be in December, and then the content was supposed to drop in February with a PTS in January. None of that's on the table anymore. That is all pushed back. They are still doing the holiday event where there's a special mask you can get from the ambusher loot goblin. There's also a mask that you can get from the hunters at the top of the summit. It looks like the same one from last year. So if you didn't get it, you can get it now. So they cited just issues. I have an interesting or a more nuanced reaction to this that doesn't really, side with like happy or mad or sad or whatever. Because there's two sides of me reacting to this. There's the side of me that, talks to people who are working on this stuff and doesn't know everything, but knows enough to understand why this is happening, is reasonable about it. And then there's the fan side of me that's just mad that, we're having to wait more time. We've essentially gone 2 years without new content, or as of, March, it will have been 2 years since Warlords. And now it's going to be longer. And that sucks, for someone who wants to make content, wants to talk about it, is excited about this stuff. That's upsetting and it's frustrating. On the other hand, there's a part of me that knows that when they finished Warlords of New York, they did all the seasons at the same time. And when they released Warlords and started the seasonal content, they were under the impression that the Division 2 was done. And so they reallocated their resources. They started working on these, they've already been working on Avatar, one AAA giant licensed game. And then they started work on a Star Wars game, a Disney collaboration, which is another gigantic AAA licensed game. And so they moved people to that project because that's what they thought they were working on next. They thought Division 2 was done. And many of them, as far as I know, were unhappy that was the case. But, Ubisoft calls the shots. Massive doesn't. And then after Warlords was out, it had much better metrics and much better numbers than they anticipated. And Ubisoft said, well, hey, that looks like that community is still alive. We want more content. And Massive is like, we don't have anyone. And I've kind of collected that information from various sources. I don't know everything 100%, but I've been able to kind of piece together those series of events. And it makes sense because now we know of a handful of people at Massive who are directing this project: Pele, Yannick, Trick, and I'm sure there's some other people. And then we know that they're using an outside team from Ubisoft Bucharest to actually do probably the heavy work of, you know, the actual creating models and animating and doing all of that, probably some world creation. And the thing that you have to realize is that I'm under the impression that around like February or whenever the announcement was for more content, that got approved like days beforehand. Maybe I'm wrong. If someone wants to prove me wrong, I'm happy to hear it. But I'm under the impression that they got the approval and then they put out that announcement. And the problem is that they've had to build a new team. And so, you know, it takes weeks and months to build a new team and to set their direction and to start doing the stuff. And so if you're, you know, if they didn't actually start development on some of this stuff until May, June, maybe even July, you're talking about like a handful of months. And it's a catch-22, right? They maybe they could have gotten content ready for February, but it wouldn't be that great probably. And then we would have all waited 2 years for content that none of us really wanted anyways. Or, you know, we let them actually finish and do what they intend to do. And hopefully it's an update big enough and grand enough to be worth the wait. Some of the reactions I've seen are just so hilarious. I mean, it's the same people, it's the same communities that, you know, they always moan and groan. See, the thing is if they would have rushed this project and put the stuff out in February, like they initially said, the same people calling them liars and dragging them through the mud for this delay would be the first ones putting up videos and showing exploits of like, yeah, look how garbage this is. Why did we wait for this? This is terrible. They should have delayed this. So it's a damned if you do or don't, because these people don't really care about the quality of the content. They don't care about the game or the content that comes out. They care about whatever the hot take is that they can provide. That gets them the most clicks, that gets them their, you know, 2,000 views on YouTube, that gets them their 15 people watching them on Twitch, because it gets them their 15 likes on Twitter, because it's not about, you know, trying to rally the community for good content. It's not about trying to, you know, provide good information or insight or thoughts. It's just about riling people up. It's about the sensational. It's about getting everyone going and getting everyone mad. Because here's the thing. They didn't delay it for fun. They didn't delay it because it's done and ready to go, and they're just throwing up their middle fingers to everyone. They're delaying it because it's not done. They're delaying it because it's not ready. So these people who are moaning and groaning and crying about it, the alternative is that they just put out a product that's not finished, a la the Summit, which it doesn't seem like it was done, because a couple months after the Summit came out, then it felt finished. But by then people stopped playing it. So like there's some of these reactions I've seen, especially people who go directly after the devs. It's like there's not a single dev that's responsible for this. This is people way up the chain that decide on these delays, that decide to try to restart a whole project after they've completely shut it down, but not give people enough time and try to push, you know, time frames. You know, you can tweet these devs that care and that respond and that try to give people some peace of mind. But then you see, you know, it's the same. Here's a test. Here's a litmus test. If you ever see someone interacting with a dev or just calling the devs out in general, especially if it's a creator, look at their Twitter page, look at their social media. 99 times out of 100, you're going to see an entire wall of just toxic trash. It's going to be, and it may not be just the Division. Every single game that they touch, you'll see the same pattern with all of these creators. It's hype, it's initial reaction, whoa, this is amazing. And then it's, oh, this game sucks. And here's why. Here's why you should be mad about it. And here's why we should drag them through the dirt because of it. It's the same thing. You see the same pattern over and over and over again, whether it's with one game and the releases they make or with multiple games. I'm telling you, you see, it's so funny. It's the Division and Outriders. It's all these people. You every time you see these people pop up, if you look at their page, all they talk about is like the Division and Outriders. They don't talk about Destiny because Destiny's in a better state, but they don't like that game because, or they probably like it. They just don't report on it because it doesn't get clicks, right? And so there's just this constant cycle of hype, reaction, disappointment, hype, reaction, disappointment, hype, reaction, disappointment, toxicity, and that's what happened here. I mean, yeah, the delay sucks. It's a huge bummer, and it's bad for the IP, and it's bad for the image of the studio. It's bad for everyone. But again, they didn't delay as a middle finger to anyone. They didn't delay as a joke. They delayed because it's not done. And so, if these same people got mad about their car being delayed from being fixed, they would want to drive the car off the lot without a header on it, and they would get 20 miles down the road and their engine would explode, and then they'd bitch about that. So it's so frustrating. Luckily, the only time I really see this nowadays is if a dev or someone screenshots and then posts these kind of interactions, because I've blocked all these people forever ago. Best decision I ever made. I used to mute people on Twitter because I didn't think blocking was fair. But then I started to realize that these people, there's never going to be a time where they're reasonable, where they're thoughtful, where they're trying to have an honest interaction and conversate and express their ideas and bounce things back and forth. I think this, and if you disagree with them, they attack you directly, and they don't talk about your opinion. They don't care about it. They just blow it off, and you're a shill. You lick them, you whatever, all the things I've heard. White knight. I've been a white knight, most of my, the last 4 or 5 years, I guess. And, because they aren't thoughtful enough. They don't care about having that discourse. It's about the reaction. It's about the sensation. It's about getting those emotions going, getting that toxicity flowing. And, it's moving, because if you block if you mute these people, they're still gonna tweet you, and they're still gonna do this shit, but you won't see it, and everyone else will. And so I don't think I don't have a single mute left on my Twitter. It's all blocks. I just started blocking because if I could tell, there's plenty of people who I'm friends with on Twitter who we disagree wholeheartedly, but it's never become a personal interaction. It's always just been like, oh, I think this. Oh, that's interesting. Why? And it just goes back and forth. That's awesome. I don't care if someone agrees with me. People who agree with you are almost boring because it's, there's no conversation. What I can't deal with, and what I haven't dealt with, especially for the last couple of years, are people who are personal, who are sensational, who don't actually make any point. They just kind of say loud things. And so I highly suggest that if you follow any of these people, just stop following them or even block them, because it's not giving the people attention like that. Even if you're disagreeing with them, even if you're calling them out, they can't be called out because they have no shame. So when you see people reacting to this stuff in a way that it's like childish, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be disappointed about, Division 2 content being delayed, but making this big deal out of it, honestly, at this point, if the primary content someone makes is still the Division 2, they've accepted the situation. You can't still be making Division 2 content and not have basically put yourself behind the decisions that are being made, because otherwise you're only there to sensationalize. Because if you're still making content for the Division 2, because I'm barely even making content for Division 2. I played it on stream for like 6 minutes the other day. That was it, to get my mask. It's because I don't like what they're doing right now. There's nothing to do. I could put out 2 or 3 videos a week. I could do every podcast about the Division 2 only. But the only way I could do that is if I got toxic, and if I got ridiculous, and if I just made shit up, and if I just was mad all the time, I was just trying to stir things up. And I don't want to do that. That's bad for your heart. That's bad for your brain, and you can see it. You can see, the road these people go down when they're just so desperate to make content for this game that has no content right now. And you see the way it comes out. It comes out as attacking devs, attacking people people who still give the game a chance, attacking anyone who doesn't agree with them. And it's rough. So this turned into more of a rant than reporting on Division 2. But I had to get that off my chest. So there you go. And yeah, the delay sucks. I bet it's probably going to be delayed till summer, or probably late summer is my honest guess. And that's just the way it's going to be. And I hope it's really cool. To this, I'm still honestly worried. I don't think it's going to be worth the wait. Unfortunately, I don't think that the longer it goes, the higher the expectations are and the bigger it needs to be. And I just don't think that's in the cards. I don't, it's, I think I said last time or the time before that we're going to get to a point where we're going to say, should they have maybe just not done this? Like, should they have saved their time and money and maybe started pre-production on a Division 3? Because they could start pre-production on Division 3 with a small team right now. And then by the time Star Wars is done, basically be ready to jump straight into development of that. In theory, that's possible. Is that happening? Probably not, because they're probably spending their resources on this content. And I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm sure it's going to be cool. I'll play it for sure. I can't wait. But I think we're going to have a question at some point, or a discussion like, was this worth it? Was it worth the wait? Was it worth the investment? Was it worth all the blood, sweat, and tears? Was it worth all the toxicity? I suspect it won't be, unfortunately, but I hope I'm wrong. Big time. I really hope I'm wrong, honestly. Okay, next story, Mass Effect. Yes, I get to talk about my two favorite franchises. Mass Effect next. That's what I'm calling it now. People are calling it Mass Effect 4, Mass Effect 5. I have no idea what it's going to be called. I don't think Andromeda was 4, so I think it might be called 4. I also could see them try to move on and just maybe start a new trilogy, or, call it something different. Mass Effect Beyond, Mass Effect Milky Way, Mass Effect whatever. We basically have a confirmation of Unreal Engine 5 being used in this project. A developer posted a job listing asking for people familiar with Unreal Engine 4 and 5. And then the project director, Mike Gamble, retweeted it. And so without confirming it officially, this seems like them being like, yeah, we're going to do Unreal Engine 5. So if you're not really familiar with Mass Effect or EA games and studios in general, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, I believe, were on Unreal Engine 3 during the 360 PS3 era. And when they did Andromeda, they moved to Snowdrop, or to Frostbite, not Snowdrop. I confuse them. DICE is a Swedish studio. Massive is a Swedish studio. DICE is under EA, Massive is under Ubisoft, and they have Snowdrop and Frostbite. It's super frustrating. But Frostbite is an engine that DICE created for Battlefield. And they've been using Frostbite, I think, since, I want to say Battlefield 3 or 4. It's been around a while, and it's a great first-person shooter engine for destruction, for just pure graphics or animations. It's gorgeous. The problem is that when EA bought DICE, they decided, hey, we want to be like Epic, and we want to use this in-house engine because they don't have to pay licensing fees on it. And we're going to use this engine on everything. So now if you play a Madden game, a FIFA game, most games published by EA are on the Frostbite engine at this point, and that's had its ups and downs. A big down was Andromeda, Mass Effect Andromeda. I've read some articles. None of this stuff has really been confirmed, but from ex-devs and stuff who worked on Andromeda, and it sounds like a big part of the problem with Mass Effect Andromeda was that they had to essentially take Frostbite, which is what, primarily a first-person, an engine used to make first-person shooter games, and turn it into an engine that could do third-person RPG, deep mechanic, giant world, open world games, which it was never meant to do. And when you see Andromeda, you can see that those limitations, at least for the engine at that time. And what you also find and what you hear is that it sounds like developers basically took a majority of the development time of Andromeda on just trying to make the engine work for the game, which didn't leave enough time to finish the game. And the issues with Andromeda were well publicized, and a lot of those issues do still exist, in my opinion. I think Andromeda is an okay game, but it definitely didn't, take the mantle of the trilogy. So this move to Unreal, probably Unreal Engine 5, I imagine, is a big deal. It's a big deal for a few reasons. It's a big deal because them deciding on an engine means that they can really start pushing forward with what they're going to do and what they're going to be able to do when it comes to pre-production. It means that their hiring, in my opinion, will probably be really good because if you ask a young developer or even a very experienced developer to come to your project, and you give them the prospect of working on Unreal Engine 5, which they're probably familiar with 4 already if they're in the business or if they were in school, if you give them the prospect of Unreal Engine 5 compared to working on Frostbite, which is, lauded by a lot of people as being a problematic engine, or it at least has that reputation, I bet it's going to be a lot easier to pull high quality devs to an Unreal 5 project, especially now that we're seeing, that Matrix showcase for Unreal 5, which I played and is just wild. It is so cool. The tech there is amazing. And while I was playing that, all I was thinking about was like, holy crap, like a Mass Effect using this tech will be so amazing, graphically, mechanically, world wise. And then also we saw the trailer of Senua's Saga during the Game Awards, and you can see what. Obviously, Senua's Saga isn't going to be the most mechanically deep gameplay game, right? It's going to be a story game where you do some gameplay stuff. But just graphically, seeing what they were able to do with that in engine and showing like real time playing, I mean, that's crazy. So even if they can't do that high fidelity because it's going to be a much bigger game, even like a medium level of fidelity on this new Unreal 5 engine, because of the tools that they have with like that MetaHuman project, where it can basically make people's faces. I think it does their voices, all their animations, and it does it with like AI, like deep learning. And it can make every single person in the world look different, and it can automatically generate them. Like stuff like that is so cool. And the fact that it seems like they're going to put the next Mass Effect game on there, it's exciting from a tech perspective. It sounds like this engine is going to be really easy or easier to make games on, to make big games on. So hopefully it means that the development can be smoother, and all these developers they're bringing back from the original trilogy are already familiar with 3. If they went to other games after BioWare, then they probably worked on Unreal Engine 4. And that means that most of them should already be familiar with the engine and how to use the tools. And hopefully Epic works with Mass Effect and BioWare to help them make this game as great as it can be. So I'm super excited about this news. It means that there's progress happening. I still, it still sounds like the rumors. I pinged Jeff Grubb on Twitter, like, hey, does this mean that maybe it's going to start development earlier? And his response was they're still putting pieces into place. So that to me means that we're still deep in pre-production, and that the rumors that they aren't going to start actual like full development until 2023 after Dragon Age 3 or 4 releases, probably still true. And that means that we're looking at least 2 or 3 years of development after that. So 2025, 2026. It's hard to accept that as someone who is new to the franchise and wants new Mass Effect so badly. It's also hard to complain because there's people who have been waiting for 10 plus years for that, even for 5 years since 4 or 5 years since Andromeda. So exciting news. There's something happening, and I'll be excited to see where they go with it. The next story is some more NFT talk. How exciting. So Stalker, which is a game that's going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC, it should be on Game Pass as well. But Stalker 2 is the sequel to a game that came out quite a while ago, and is still highly regarded. If you look on Twitch, there's still people playing Stalker, the original one from like 10 plus years ago, that has a bunch of mods and expansions and all this stuff. It's a wild community that's very dedicated to this franchise. Well, the sequel is coming soon, soon-ish. I think it's next year. and they made a real weird decision. It seemed like a very tone deaf one, that they weren't paying attention to the reaction to Ubisoft and stuff, where they're like, we're going to do NFTs, and if you have an NFT, you have a chance to be in the game in the metaverse. And they used, it was so weird reading this release, because it's like there's like 6 words that if you're trying to do something crypto and trying to recruit crypto bros, you have to use these like certain terms, and it brings them in, and they used every one of them. It was so weird, it was so awkward. And the thing is that's going on right now, in my opinion, after hearing more about it, reading more about it, trying to learn more, is that at this point for gaming, it seems like there's nothing that crypto or blockchain or NFT is doing that you can't do without it. Like Stalker 2 could pick 3 people who are fans of the game, who pre-order it or whatever, to be in the game. They could pick them and then like scan their faces and put them in the game. Like you can do that without an NFT. There's no reason you shouldn't. It's such a, they are shoehorning this concept in because it's fashionable right now. But what's interesting is it's hard to figure out who it's fashionable to, because the majority of gamers obviously aren't into it. And I think a lot of us, especially the older ones of us, can tell that it's like kind of like shady. Like it seems like it's being like forced really hard, instead of being like a natural thing. It seems like it's, every time I see people talking about it, I feel like I'm at a used car dealership and the guy's trying to sell me a car with 200,000 miles on it, being like, nah, man, I promise it's good. It's actually a really good thing. Like, just trust me. And so what happened is they announced it, and then I think a day or 2 later, they kind of were like, yeah, we're hearing you out. Here's why we're doing it, and here's how we came to the conclusion to do it. And they kind of like tried to justify using the NFTs. And then I think like an hour later, they took that down and were like, hey, we're not going to do it. Our bad. We've heard you. We can tell you people aren't into this. Our bad. I've seen some speculation that people think that like Xbox has put out basically a statement of like, yeah, we don't like these NFT games. We don't want to deal with that. There's people who think that Xbox may have pressured them because of this exclusivity deal, to not do that. I honestly kind of doubt that. They very well and may have been like, hey, this definitely isn't the way that we're looking. We don't want that. But I would be willing to bet that probably wasn't a big factor. I think they just, could feel the turning of the tide. And it's really weird that it seems like, I saw an interview with Ubisoft's CEO where he was basically, being like, yeah, we think people want this. They want to be able to buy a house on NFT. And people are like, no, like, what does that mean? Like, is there going to be an Ubisoft metaverse? Like, who wants that other than like NFT bros? Like, I don't want that right now. I barely want to have anything to do with Ubisoft at all, let alone own permanent NFTs and have a metaverse where I have like crap that's persistently through them. I just don't. I like Ubisoft needs to put out like 2 or 3 really good games. Like that's what they need to do. They don't need to put out NFTs. They need to put out like 2 or 3 games that people are super hyped for. And that's it. And so Stalker, so they did pull back, and it seems like they're going to get away from this NFT idea. I'll be curious if they try to like kind of slip it in later as something else. There's been a lot of talk at like various companies, including Ubisoft, are going to try to like rebrand NFTs kind of, and basically present the same idea, but not actually call it that. We'll see. It's an interesting time, but Stalker 2 was the first one to be like, JK, we aren't going to do it. Our bad. Speaking of Ubisoft, we found out that they announced that Ubisoft Toronto is in pre-production on the Splinter Cell remake. So this cites to a question that Rogue Gold put on Twitter for me, that I'll cover here, is that I think that we all thought that this Splinter Cell game was a new Splinter Cell game. And what's really interesting, and I saw some other commentators about it pointing this out, is that one, this doesn't seem like it was like a planned announcement. They would have had a little trailer or even just the little goggles coming up or something. But all they did was just like put out like a tweet in a press release. And so people are speculating that they put out the Splinter Cell info to kind of distract from the NFT courts, Yes. And I completely agree. I think that's definitely what they did. And they, and I think this being a remake of the first game is weird. So I've seen confirmations that it's not going to be converted into like an open world game. It's going to be the original game, expanded and updated and new tech. One really cool thing is they are going to use Snowdrop, the massive engine that the Division is on, which is great because I've heard that the newer version of Snowdrop that Star Wars and Avatar are using has ray tracing and DLSS and a bunch of really cool stuff in it. So, them putting the which means they're going to make this new Splinter Cell from scratch, which means that there's a pretty good chance that when they finish the remake, this is going to be like a full remake, like the Final Fantasy 7. There's been a few other games like Resident Evil 2 who've had like full ground up remakes. I think that's what this is, but I would say it's probably going to set in motion some sequels, some new games. But I really think it was kind of sneaky that one, they were pretty blatantly trying to distract people with this announcement, and two, I thought for sure this was going to be a new game, not a remake. So I don't know if there's also a new game in production. I don't know. So we'll have to wait to hear more about that. But I definitely did not think that's what it was going to be. And the next story I was going to talk about quickly was Escape from Tarkov 12.12. So there was just a big new patch for Tarkov, including a wipe. So everyone started over. And I just wanted to briefly talk about, if you've played this game in the past and haven't played it this time or even recently, it's worth a shot. The voiceover IP that they introduced is so cool. I did not expect to be so excited because I play solo. I've never played with another person, like match, like grouped up and then played. I've met up with people in game and played with them just randomly, but never in this way. And this voiceover IP, this game has been such a solitary, like borderline depressing game to play for the last 3 or 4 years I've been playing it, because you're alone. Everyone who you see tries to kill you. Like it's just such a dark game, and it's so anxiety producing and stuff like that. And that's like almost gone. It's really weird. So obviously there's going to be people who are still going to be dicks in this game, right? Like, and there's even going to be people who shoot on sight, or people who are going to act nice and then try to kill you. That's the nature. I would say I've had 50 interactions with random people so far, and one went badly so far. I would say like half the people were like, "Hey man, what's up? Are you friendly?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm friendly. You too?" "Yeah, man." And we might even say like, "Hey, do you need something?" "Yeah, I need this." And then we split off and do our separate things. But then like half the time I've like been like, "Hey man, do you mind if I run with you?" And we run together, we loot, we kill some bad people, and then we bounce. And it's so fun. And it makes the game feel so much less lonely. It feels like a real like social, much more organic experience, where before it was, okay, I spawned here, I need to go there, I know there's someone here, here, and here. If I see them, I'm going to have to kill them. If they see me, they're going to kill me. And now it's turned into, okay, I need to go do that. There's people over here, I'll see how they act. If they're cool, maybe we'll do stuff together. If not, we're going to have to fight. And I've even seen people being like around the corner, like they shoot back and forth, they maybe hit each other and be like, "Hey man, I'm just trying to go do this." "Yeah, me too. I'm just trying to do that." "Okay, well you go and then I'm going to go, and we won't deal with each other." So it's not even like people are always like friendly. Sometimes they just don't want to deal with each other because that game is so punishing. And there's these moments of like, if you shoot at someone, they shoot at you, you both hide, and they say, "Hey man, I'm doing this quest," like, and like, "Oh, that quest sucks," and they just want to get done. It really changes the dynamic a lot, and it makes you like, what VoIP has done is introduced guilt, and it's introduced like natural socialization. So like, or like a social game. So like, if I see a player who has like no gear and they're just trying to be like, "Hey man, I'm just trying to go do this thing. Please leave me alone. Like, I won't mess with you." You can kill them. You can just shoot them in the head. You can take whatever, nothing they have. But a normal person will kind of feel guilty about that, right? And so it's really interesting what they've added. Now, the issue I see that will be coming is that, this novel idea will wear off eventually, right? And so maybe people won't stay quite as friendly. So far, so good. What also happens is, after you've been playing it for a couple weeks, depending on how quickly you're progressing, you start getting quests and tasks that specifically tell you you have to kill other people. And so there's going to come a point where you're going to have to start approaching people knowing that there's a good chance they have a quest that will be benefited by killing you. So even if they're friendly, you're going to have to be always kind of watch your back. So what I think it's going to turn a lot into is people meeting up, being like, hey, and then like going their separate ways. And then maybe sometimes fighting, like if you're on a quest where you need to kill other people. But then I could also see an economy come out of it though, where say you're on a quest where you need to kill other PMCs, other players. You may in your bag keep like some valuable item that they can put into their safe pack that they keep even if they die. And you could run into someone and be like, hey man, I need to kill you. Like that's I'm doing that task. I'm gonna throw my backpack on the ground, take it, put this item in your safe pack, and then I'm gonna kill you. But you'll benefit for whatever, give them a graphics card or something. And you may even start to see people be like, hey, work with me. Because what I've even done is you can play as a scav, which is like one of the AI, and you can play as them. And the PMCs, which is your main character, have to kill a ton of those. So what I've done is when I'm a scav, I'll find PMCs. I've done this 2 or 3 times. I've been like, hey man, please don't kill me. I know that you need to kill me, but let's do this. The scabs won't shoot at me. So let me go find them. You follow me and I will tell you where they are and you can kill them. I've done this 2 or 3 times and someone's done this for me. And it was so helpful. Yeah, this new update's great. Even just for that. Now there's a whole new map. I haven't even played it yet, Lighthouse, and there's a ton of other stuff. They've added weight to your character. So it used to be that people could like jitter around like Call of Duty and just do all this goofy stuff when they're playing the game. It has so much more heft now. It feels a lot like Arma, if you've ever played that, where like you can't dance around. Like you need to be very deliberate and careful with the way that you play the game. And it's so fun. It's really good. I haven't been progressing very quickly because I'm kind of just enjoying the experience. So if you haven't played it before, if you've been interested, if you did play it before but haven't recently, I highly suggest checking it out. The next story here is the Halo Infinite cut content story. So there's been some leaks and some talk about how basically people have data mined and figured out a bunch of stuff that Halo Infinite story was supposed to have. And it kind of breaks down to, it sounds like it was supposed to be a open world. So if you've played it, you know that it's not really truly an open world. It's separated into these islands and they're not that big. You can run across them in a couple minutes or drive across or whatever. And it's great. I love the story. I thought it was really good. And what's interesting is that the description I've read about this, like 2/3 of the game that was supposedly cut, I don't think it would have been better for it. Now it wasn't cut because of artistic reasons. It was cut because they didn't have enough people. It sounds like leadership wasn't very decisive and it just kind of floundered. It was cut for bad reasons, it sounds like. But honestly, I'm glad it was because I'm so done with Ubisoft games. I didn't play Far Cry 6. I don't want to. I see that big map and I just don't care. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. Honestly, the Halo Infinite open world was perfect. I blew right through the story. I just went straight to the story missions and finished it. I'll go back and do all the other stuff eventually. But like, I'm like, it's so interesting that this story was being proposed as like, oh, Halo Infinite, like could have been way better. And I don't think it would have been. It sounds like it would have been worse, at least in my opinion. It sounds like instead of being a more streamlined open world type game, it would have just been an Ubisoft open world and it would have just been like a drag. So as far as I'm concerned, the cut of that content was perfectly fine. Moving on to the next and last topic. This is more of just a suggestion than a topic. I would highly suggest you check out the Xbox Power On, the Story of Xbox documentary. You can watch all 6 episodes on YouTube, and it basically takes it from the planning stages of the first Xbox until today. And what's really cool about it is that you see they dive into the negative. They dive into their failures. They talk about the Red Ring of Death. They talk about the Xbox One generation in general and Connect and various failings they had during those times. They talk about trying to buy a Nintendo and getting laughed out of the room. They talk about the how developers reacted to the Sony Cell processor in the PS3 compared to their own proprietary processor in the 360, and how they moved on to more general PC hardware in Xbox One and now Series X. And it's just really great. You get to hear Seamus talk, who developed the original one, or was one of the people who did. He's hilarious. His interviews are incredible if you find him on other places. And yeah, I highly, highly suggest checking out that documentary if you're an Xbox fan, especially, but honestly, if you're a Sony or just a game fan in general, it gives a good perspective from the other side, I guess. So jumping into some listener questions, we have Dr. Deadlift on Discord asked any fond memories tied to video games, such as, first console or things like that. The only Christmas one I think I have is I got a PS2 for Christmas. I want to say like my freshman year of high school. I would have to go back and look at release dates and all of that. But that would have been in 2002. So I think that's, I think that works. But I remember that being like a pretty big deal. Like, and I'm old enough to remember I had consoles before that. I was mostly a PC gamer at that time, playing like Age of Empires and things like that. But yeah, definitely some fond memories. The PS2 was such a cool a time in gaming. I was a big time like NCAA football and basketball player, a little bit of Madden, not too much. Black, I was really into the shooter game. Obviously, I think Call of Duties and stuff were starting to come out by then. I want to say I played Ghost Recon on that. I don't know. It was just, yeah, that was a really cool time. And what I'm really excited about is as my little one gets older, to try to provide her some of those kind of moments and memories as well. Master Prime on Discord asked, what is first, gameplay or lore? For me, I think I lean lore for sure, but I think they both matter. A great example was this year of Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and that game's gameplay is like okay, but I saw reviews saying that the gameplay was like not the best. So I actually played that game in the easiest possible mode because I wanted to feel powerful, because the feedback I saw was that it just felt kind of drawn out. Like the fights took a little too long. And so I dropped the difficulty as low as possible and just kicked ass through that game. And it felt great. Like it felt the way I think you're supposed to feel as a superhero, So I definitely lean toward the lore, and I will sacrifice gameplay for that. But obviously there's a balance that has to be met, right? And I think that they're both really important. Then your second question here kind of plays into the same thing of Halo Infinite. Is it worth $60 for the campaign? And I would say yes-ish. I think it's worth $60. It's a great campaign. The story's incredible. And I assume that there's going to be DLC. On the other hand, I don't think you should pay $60 for it, because you can beat it in 10 to 15, maybe 20 hours. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't just buy Game Pass for 1 month, play it all the way through, and then be done. And if you like Game Pass and you find other games and you keep it and you keep playing, or you just play it and then don't pay for it again, and you played Halo Infinite and probably some other games for what, 10 or $15. And that's definitely better than 60 or 70, whatever they're going for now. So I do think it's worth it, but I don't think you should pay that, if that makes sense. For some quick content updates, I am kind of trying to consolidate my content. I feel like I'm in a lot of different spots. I've got Patreon and Discord and Twitter, and Twitch and my podcast in 100 places. And I feel like I just feel very spread out. And I feel like it's tough to grow when I can't focus. So I'm trying to look at ways that I can consolidate. I want to keep podcasting. I want to keep streaming. And I want to try to figure out a way to bring that tighter, so that I'm not, reaching out into so many different places. So like having YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all these different things is just a lot for someone who's doing this as a fun hobby, essentially, as a serious hobby. So I still want to podcast every week. I still want to stream as often as I can. But I would like to try to bring it kind of all together a little bit more. And that's all I have. So I will try to do an episode on New Year's Eve. I should have time that evening, but we'll see. Next week, we may not get an episode. It's Christmas weekend. I'll be very busy Friday, Saturday, Monday, probably Sunday as well. And then I'm off work that next week, but I'll be spending that time with my family. So, it's, I'll be around when I'm around, but I do plan on starting January 1st. I really want next year to really double down and hit it hard. Hopefully there's some games that are exciting. I keep playing games I'm enjoying, and we will try not to take like a 4-month break. I will probably not try to switch over to YouTube again to stream, and I can just focus on Twitch and YouTube and the podcast. We can do the 2022 Extra Life and really focus on that, and really try to do some cool things. So I just want to say thank you to you all. And as we wrap things up here, I do stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/BonDiesel. I also post this podcast, stream VODs, and narrative game videos on YouTube as BonDiesel. If you are on Discord, please check out the description below or my Twitter to jump onto my Discord server for the EchoCast. Check out my Twitter at BonDiesel or at the EchoCast. And you can check out some cool The EchoCast or BonDiesel merch at designbyhumans.com/shop/BonDiesel or streamlabs.com/BonDiesel/merch. That's all I have. So until next time.